Hi, and welcome to Great Getaways. Well, we've got a special show for you today. We're going to be celebrating the 50th anniversary of the first Rails to Trails here in Michigan. I'm standing at the most northern part of this trail. We're going to be taking it south down to Manistique. We're going to be learning about this trail, the history of it, and the different uses for it. The Haywire Grade is Michigan's first rail trail. It was established right here in the central Upper Peninsula in 1970. Well, that was 50 years ago, and it is now time to celebrate that milestone. This rail trail is so much more than a recreational byproduct of an old train line. It is an incredible piece of wilderness history and mechanical accomplishment. It is where the Lake Superior Railroad traveled, hauling the lumber that was cut from what we now know as the Hiawatha National Forest. This was the lumber that rebuilt Chicago after the Great Fire of 1871 that destroyed roughly 3.5 square miles and left more than 100,000 residents homeless. So, to enjoy this landmark achievement, we are going to travel this trail from Manistique to Shingleton, a total of 49 miles by mountain bike, ATV, horse, and snowmobile. Jerry Reese, the chairman of the 50th anniversary celebration, fills us in on what we can expect through the coming year.
We're currently working on the information kiosk projects. There will be 12 information kiosks that will be installed out on the Haywire Grade in the 34 miles between Manistique and Shingleton. In 2020, we're going to have 4 events to celebrate the 50th anniversary.
Our first adventure will be on snowmobiles. Beginning at Intake Park in Manistique, markers have been installed every mile along the trail to Shingleton. All are located on the east side of the trail. The tall markers each feature the mile number and the historic Manistique Lake Superior Railroad logo. Standing several feet above the trail, the markers are located safely above the average snow depth, so they don't get buried in the winter. If you take a full trip to Shingleton and back, it's about 64 miles, with only one stop along this wilderness trail, and that is the Jackpine Restaurant and Pub. This little place along the trail has some history itself. Ask about the wooden statue in the basement. I don't know if it's still there, but it made for some interesting conversations. The kiosks along the way will fill you in on the history. On one, you will learn how the railroad came to this spot, and on another, you will find out about the incredibly hard life of the railroad worker and how they move the snow in the winter. You can always plan for plenty of snow on the Heywhere because of the north winds blowing down from Lake Superior. With all that snow comes the responsibility of the groomers to keep it in tip-top shape. You'll be hard-pressed to find another association that keeps their trails in such great shape. And this guy just loves the snow, you can tell. We're standing in front of the groomer right now because, Mike, you're out here grooming the trails today.
Yeah, I'm going to run from the Jackpine here up to Shingleton. We got a lot of bridges there. I want to fill the holes in there where the bridges are from all the riding and get it turned out. We have an average of, when I go out between here and Shingleton on a Friday, we'll pass 200 to 250 sleds on the trail.
In the winter in the UP, the dress is snowmobile suit, boots, and a hat. It doesn't matter whether you're going out to dinner or out sledding. With an average of 165 inches of snowfall, Schoolcraft County is a winter paradise for outdoor enthusiasts, and especially snowmobilers, since there are nearly 400 miles of groomed trails. These trails are part of more than 2,500 miles of well-marked, well-maintained pathways throughout the Upper Peninsula. The plentiful snowfall meant we not only had great sledding conditions, but we would enjoy a picturesque winter landscape. The overhanging pines were laden with snow, giving the path a tunnel-like effect. With an average of over 165 inches of snowfall, Schoolcraft County is a winter paradise for outdoor enthusiasts, and especially snowmobilers, since there are nearly 400 miles of groomed trails. These trails are part of more than 2,500 miles of well-marked, well-maintained pathways throughout the Upper Peninsula. We followed the winding trails north towards Shingleton, a small town 38 miles from Manistique. Although much of the path is quite narrow, we found some wide open areas that we could stray from the groomed trails and do some hot rodding. We continued all the way to Shingleton, where we talked with a few fellow sledders and then made a turn back to Manistique. We wanted to be back before the end of the day, so it was throttle up to the legal limit, and on our way we went. Pine trees dotted the trailside as we cruised into the evening, enjoying this trip until the last possible moment. Our hats are off to the Schoolcraft County Snowmobile Club for all their time and effort in making this trail system world class. There are many motels right on or close to the trail, and you'll find a complete listing of these on our website. From here, we would jump back on the trail and head to the Palms Brook State Park, the home of Mirror of Heaven, Big Springs. Snowmobiles are not allowed in Palms Brook State Park, so you could only ride as far as the parking lot. In fact, Palms Brook State Park is designated as a state scenic area. No sports or other recreation is allowed. But as you will see, the trip to this remote area is one everyone should take. Okay, we're over here to Getaways right now. It is dusk. You can see it's getting dark out. We've come out on the pontoon here that takes you out into the lake itself. We're looking down on some huge fish. Now, I know that there's lake trout, brown trout, and brook trout that come in here. Judging from the size of most of these, they're probably the lake trout. Take a look at these. As we get ready to leave, we would like to show you an underwater tour of Getaways that was done by Upper Limits Media. The Native Americans called it the Mirror of Heaven, Getaways, and believe its waters held mystical powers. How else could the still waters not freeze during the legendary Upper Peninsula winters? Indian lore tells us a story of a young maiden who dove into the water. She was transformed into a beautiful white deer. Some say you can still see the outline of a white deer on the rocks under the water. Now, of course, legends aside, we know that the Big Springs, as today's locals call it, is a natural mineral spring. In fact, this big spring is Michigan's largest, over 200 feet across. Today, we were on our own to man this primitive-powered system so we could get a closer look at this ancient attraction that still inspires wonder. Close to 16,000 gallons of water per minute feed through the number of limestone fissures surrounding the basin. Yet, as you can see, the surface remains still, creating a beautiful mirror image. The ripples you see here are caused by our raft, not the spring. The water is crystal clear. An object, such as a coin, dropped into the pond can be seen falling, still easily visible some 40 feet down. Ron Yeski, Upper Peninsula Trails Coordinator for the DNR, was involved in the process of this 50th anniversary event from the beginning and gives us a more in-depth look at the whole process. We're on this Heywire trail that we've got here. What's the real significance of it? What does it mean to the community?
Yeah. Significance of this is that it's really neat because somebody had the vision back in 1969 to buy a railroad grade in the central Upper Peninsula of Michigan with the thought of using it as a trail. And at that time, that was very revolutionary. There were that predated the Rails to Trails Act, that predated federal rail banking programs, that predated all that stuff. And really what happened there is the community here, Manistique, the people of Elger and Schoolcraft counties came together and decided they wanted to make something happen. And they worked with the DNR and the Forest Service, and they actually worked with a mining company that fronted the money to buy the railroad grade. And then later on, the government was able to come back and reimburse them. But to have that much vision at that time, to be the very first rails to trail in the state of Michigan in such a rural, out of the way place is just revolutionary. Somebody really had some vision and the idea that this was going to be something special and something that they needed to protect. Because at that time, when railroad grades were abandoned, there was no process by which they became, corridors. They typically at that point, they would just become abandoned and possibly revert to other landowners, or somebody else would buy chunks of the railroad grade and sell it off. But there was no effort at that time to preserve railroad corridors for trail use. And this is the very first case in the state of Michigan where they did that, and it's really cool.
The second event will be June 6th and will be an equestrian event. Grab your horses and bring them up for a leisurely ride through the heart of the UP. You will enjoy many stops along the way, and all participants in all events will receive a patch and a chevron identifying the year. There will be a new chevron for each year of the rides. Saddle up for a safe and energizing pure Michigan horseback riding experience. The Haywire Grade is an excellent equestrian trail and caters to both beginners and the most experienced riders. Wander through this converted railroad trail and stride along fast-flowing streams. It may be the perfect equestrian trail. The Heywhere was originally the rail used by the Manistique and Lake Superior Railroad and was created in 1909. The name came from the fact that most of the resources that were used to build it and keep the trains going were hand-me-downs from other yards, and the laborers had to use their wits to make them work, and so came the term Heywire. Dan Spiegel shares with us some of the history of the Haywire Grade Trail.
My job is to work with communities around the state and to help them integrate history to their trails, and that's why I'm up here in Manistique, is to help them with the Haywire Grade. What we want to do is we want to share the authentic history of this trail. When you travel down a trail, it's like opening to a page in the middle of a book. In order for that page to make sense, you need to know what the previous chapters say. So that's what we're doing. We're working with the Schoolcraft County Historical Society, my staff in Lansing, and we're identifying what this unique history of this area is. So when people ride down this trail, it kind of has context. There's more meaning to the trail because they understand why this place is unique and why it's special.
Ennis Jankowski, the owner of the Grey Wolf Lodge in Manistique and enthusiastic mountain bike rider, met us at the trailhead of the Haywire Grade. Not only is Dennis an avid rider, he's also chairman of the mountain bike event that is part of the celebration for the 50th anniversary of the first Rails to Trails in Michigan. Denny explained that the bike event would be the third event for the 50th anniversary celebration and would be held on August 22nd, 2020. So as we get rolling crossing over the river, we are prepared to have a great UP experience on the Haywire Grade. The actual railroad grade started just north of the bridge that we're crossing today. There are actual pilings of the original bridge still here. The event will start at Intake Park in Manistique and will go roughly 21 miles to the Jackpine Lodge, which takes us about halfway to Shingleton. That seems short, but 21 miles on bikes on a dirt trail is pretty exhausting. He explained that we'll see nature at its best. Beautiful scenery all the way. Beautiful greens in the summer and incredible colors in the fall. Denny said you're liable to see everything from deer to bald eagles. If you listen carefully, you will hear a woodpecker in the distance and may get close enough to see one before it flies away. Being on bikes, our chances increase tenfold over riding a motorized vehicle. They're so much quieter than, say, an ATV or a snowmobile. And if you love nature and the silence that surrounds it, this is the way to travel. The trail becomes a lot more open as you get further away from town. At first it was a lot sandier, but as we went on, it became more hard-packed gravel and a lot less sand.
Yeah, I liked right at the beginning when we got to cross the Manistique River, right, which was really beautiful.
Another benefit of getting further away from town was you experience much more of Mother Nature and her wildlife. And isn't that why we come to Michigan's Upper Peninsula?
And we're going to take right now, we're going to take a good look down the road, we're going to cross, and we're going to head back into Mother Nature.
Let's go.
The Haywire Grade markers, which meet Michigan Department of Transportation standards for nighttime visibility, have improved the trail's safety by offering important location information for maintenance operations, first responders, and others. Once back on the grade, the trail becomes a hard-packed two-track that passes through a recently logged area. About a mile and a half from the second M94 crossing, another trail veers off to the right, leading to the Indian River Camp and Picnic Grounds 1 mile away. The tree species you find along the Heywire depends, to a large extent, on the soil type and moisture conditions. Poorly drained soils and low areas are occupied by black ash, black spruce, tamarack, and cedar.
Well, this is kind of interesting. You know, when we left Manistique, we were on the east side of the trail. We went down the trail a few miles, across 94, come up, we've been on the west side now, and now we're cutting back across again to the east side. And I think what I like about it is we still remain a flat terrain, yet the woods change. I mean, we've got pines in some areas, you got swamps, you got hardwoods. It all changes as you go along. That's one of the nice things about moving all through this area.
It is. It's a beautiful ride, and by crossing 94, you do have a. If you got tired and you needed a place to be picked up, you're out of the woods and you could call for a ride.
Very good. Excellent idea. Hey, you hungry?
Yeah, it's past time for lunch.
I know it is. We got a few miles to get going here. Yeah, please say
go.
We go.
This takes a lot of people to put together, a lot of funding to go along with it.
Yeah.
Where does the funding all come from?
Well, it's a good question. Well, first off, just to get the 50th anniversary going, there's a lot of great organizations up here in Manistique, like the Manistique Tourist Council, Schoolcraft County Motorized Trail Association. They recognize that they have this asset here, so they approached the DNR, they approached me to get involved to help them bring about these heritage kiosks. And you also have the U.S. Forest Service, because half of the trail runs through their property. So there are a number of organizations coming together to help make this celebration and make these kiosks possible.
Okay, what are people going to find on these kiosks that are so interesting?
Well, it's a great story. You know, the railroad came in through here back around the turn of the last century. But the history begins here 11,000 years ago, when there were big ice sheets in this area and they receded. Right where we're standing, there's an ice sheet almost 2 miles high. So when it receded, it sculpted all this beautiful landscape. And then people came in soon after. So we're going to look at what the Anishinaabe people, some of the first people that lived here, how they interacted in this landscape, what they did. But then in the 1800s, you have mining and logging. They come in, and they really changed the landscape here in the central UP. And the railroads came in to accommodate those industries. And that's why this trail is here today. So we're going to look at a lot of that history, the logging camps where the railroad stopped.
I'm with Winch and Connie Diller right now, and you may recognize them from being on our show many times in the past, and if there's anybody that knows this area, it's these two right here. Winch, we're out here on a Haywire Grade today, the first Rails to Trail program here in the state, and we've got some big celebrations going on. Can you give me some insight as to what the trail's like and what we're going to see?
Connie and I, being the groomer coordinators for the Schoolcraft County Motorized Trail Association, we work the Haywire Grade from Shingleton down to Manistique and all points in between, and any trails that feed into and off of. This particular program today is we're gearing it towards the ORV segment of the celebration of the Haywire Grade.
Okay, so when we go down the trail, in our ORV here, and we're just going to look at some of the things that are along the way.
Yes, sir.
The Haywire Grade received its name from the Heywire outfit, being a logger's term for a camp with poor equipment that had to be held together with haywire. The term became a nickname for the Manistique Lake Superior Railroad, which during emergencies was reportedly held together with pieces of discarded haywire by the railroad's engineers. On our way down from Shingleton, we stopped at the small town of Steuben, if you can call it a town. All that is left is a very small grocery store, the last vestige of many logging camps or towns that vanished after the timber was depleted.
We've just pulled down the trail. We are now in Steuben. And this is one of the old railroad grades down here?
Yeah, this is we're still in the Haywire Grade, but as you go down the Heywire, you'll notice off to the right-hand side that there's another grade coming off of it that ran back into the Hiawatha that it was collecting and clearing for lumber and such.
Okay, coming down this trail, we've seen spots along the way that probably could get kind of wet during the year, and maybe a couple of small beaver dams, a little pond here. And it's actually very scenic because you were constantly crossing the creek.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a nice trip down there. I had fun.
Oh, good.
I know I did.
Oh, yeah.
And but you know what? I'm getting hungry. Are we getting close to anywhere we can eat?
Jackpine, about 5 miles that way.
Okay, so it's right on the way.
Yes, sir, it is.
All right.
President Franklin Roosevelt's Civilian Conservation Corps began on April 17, 1933, designed to employ over 250,000 young men out of work during the Great Depression. Camp Steuben opened only 17 days later on May 4th, 1933. The men at Camp Steuben were initially housed in tents, but construction of wooden barracks began in the fall of 1933. When fully occupied, the camp housed 204 men. This segment of the trail crosses one road, contains 11 bridges, and briefly borders the Big Island Lake wilderness. This adventurous rails-to-trail wanders through miles of wetlands and plows through a few sand traps.
Okay, we just made a little stop along the trail, just taking our time, looking around. We got out, and the first thing we find are artifacts that are out here along the trail. Now, I want to mention that we're here along the trail in the National Forest. You cannot take these things. You may find them, but you're going to have to leave them here. It's against the law to actually do that. So many things going on out here. Great trail. What are all the things that we're going to be doing this summer, or this year, I should say?
There's going to be 4 different events, and with your packet, when you register for the event, you're going to be receiving a ride packet, a participation number, a map, a commemorative patch that's going to have 4 different event rockers on it for each of the events. So I don't know if you want to do all 4 events, but you can.
What we'll try and point out to you is some of the spots where we're going to have kiosks put up, informational, historical, and as I say historical is because they will be in the general vicinity of old train stops.
A lot of what we do nowadays is rehabilitate the bridges that were built in the 1800s, which is another really interesting story. But we're doing a lot of that work in the Upper Peninsula, and we're restoring a lot of old railroad grades, and it's really a part of our economy in Upper Michigan. We have mining, we have logging, and we have tourism and recreation, and that's how we survive up here. And these rail trails are very important.
All events will have an online pre-registration. Event participants will receive numbered packets, a commemorative patch, ride support, and luncheon. Participants will also have the option of ordering a commemorative t-shirt and railroad spike. Go to visitmanistique.com and click on the 50th anniversary logo, or go to greatgetaways.tv and click on the link.
We're back here at the studio now, but I'll tell you what, we had just a great time doing this show. This 50th anniversary of the Rails to Trail system was something that everybody ought to go up and celebrate. You got the whole year to do it, whether you're a snowmobiler, an ATVer, you like equestrian, horseback riding, or whether you want to go up there and bike it. And I'll tell you what, you can hike the trail too. Go out there and do it. I know you're going to have a great time. If you don't make it this year, shoot for next year. It's Always nice. It's going to be around for a long time. If you'd like more information, you can go to our website at greatgetaways.tv. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.